Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about two things about LEEF Brands, which is a stock that I cover on this YouTube channel. If you are new to this YouTube channel, the video about LEEF Brands as an investment opportunity is in the description below. So we're going to talk about the Bitcoin strategy, which was announced yesterday. And we're going to talk about how I think the stock of LEEF Brands is like a rocket about to go. Today, the stock was up like 40% at 35 cents, and then the usual sellers came in and knocked it down. So it's only up 12% for the day. But first, we're going to talk about the Bitcoin strategy. So as you know, LEEF Brands announced that they engaged Canaccord to raise $5 million to buy Bitcoin and put it on the balance sheet. This is probably the best move that this company could have ever done. And I know that some people express their dissatisfaction, but really you need to look at it from the point of view of the company, and you probably need to study Bitcoin. And I did myself. As you know, I was very against it, but because of LEEF Brands, I decided to study it and completely change my opinion on it. I suggest you read this book, The Bitcoin Standard, for you to understand it. But so why is this a unbelievably good move for LEEF Brands? If you look at the cannabis space, this is the ETF for cannabis. Look at what happened to this ETF over the last 5 years. It is pretty much down 92.5%. Over the last year, it was as high as 11, and now it is down 66%. Do you think, because of this kind of performance in the ETF, do you think there's any sort of excitement in this space? Zero. Barely anybody wants to touch this space. Everybody is afraid of this space. And even though the space is so hated because of this, delaying of the legalization, rescheduling, people are giving up, right? And even Glasshouse, which I featured in my video about LEEF, you see, it went from less than $2 to almost $10. So it had an incredible performance from the bottom, over 400%. And then look at from the top, it's down 40% in just a matter of months, right? So the space is dead. Nobody wants to touch it. So how can you bring excitement into a space that's completely dead? The rescheduling would do it, but they're going to delay it until they can't delay it anymore. We can't count on politicians. By putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, outside of the fact that it makes sense for this industry because they don't have really access to banking and all this stuff, and when they do have a bank account, they are dropped all the time. They have been ostracized, this industry. So Bitcoin makes sense for them operationally to pay each other, right? To pay for business. If you're making extracts for somebody else, you can accept payment. But outside of that, it creates excitement, potentially excitement, and eyes on a company like LEEF. Because let me give you an example. This is a Twitter account, Bitcoin Magazine, that has over 3 million followers. You know what happened today? Look what they did. They They tweeted this just in today. Publicly traded cannabis company LEEF Brands adopts Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. We didn't tell them to do this. And they exposed this to all of these followers, and look at the number of impressions that it got, 140,000. Look at the number of likes that it got. Look at the number of reshares that it got. Look at the number of comments that it got. Do you think LEEF Brands would have gotten this kind of attention or exposure if it didn't announce this strategy? So this can bring eyes on the company. Also, if you run a podcast, how could you not be interested in interviewing now a CEO of a cannabis company, first publicly traded cannabis company adopting Bitcoin? It's an interesting topic. So don't be surprised for them getting on podcasts, talking about this and talking about the strategy. Why is it right? Giving more exposure, right? Bringing excitement and getting people interested to look at the business as a story, what it is that they're doing with the business. Because Bitcoin is just a small part of it. But because of Bitcoin, they can get all these eyes to look at them, right? And now, before I tell you why I think the stock is about to take off, let's talk a little bit more about the Bitcoin in general. This is a graph of global wealth distributed across various different assets. So you have 330 trillion being in real estate, 300 trillion being in bonds. Money takes up 120 trillion of capital, equities, another 100 trillion. Then you have 6 trillion that is parked in cars and collectibles. You have 18 trillion that is in art. You have 16 trillion that is in gold. Bitcoin now has 2 trillion, okay? And more people and countries, cities are adopting it. So over a period of 5 years, there is going to be more money flowing into Bitcoin as a place to park your money or to park your wealth, okay? So if you take 2 trillion and divide it by 21 Bitcoins, that's how you get $100,000 per Bitcoin. If this number grows to 10 trillion, you divide it by the number of Bitcoins and you're going to get 500,000 per Bitcoin. It's not really a rocket science. If you get Bitcoin to a market cap of 100 trillion, that's how you get to a particular number, right? So the point is that Bitcoin is getting more and more market share of the wealth distributed across a variety of assets. Now, if you had governments around the world from the money category that they, were responsible, that they weren't printing money all the time, that they weren't stealing from us by debasing our currencies, well, then Bitcoin would have a tough competition. But what governments do best is they debase the currencies. They run deficits, they never balance their budgets. So they are doing a very good job of taking people away from fiat money and steering it into Bitcoin. So I have 100% confidence that because of the idiot governments, there's going to be more money flowing into Bitcoin, right? And now that brings me into this press release, which they talk about how they become the first publicly traded cannabis company to integrate Bitcoin into the Treasury Reserve via 5 million Bitcoin-backed debenture offering. If you read through this offering, you will know that this $5 million of offering, when it comes through, because it didn't come through, this is backed by Bitcoin. This is not backed by the company. So the company cannot go bankrupt by not paying this debt. This debt is backed by Bitcoin. And the interest rate, the 10% interest rate that it has, this is not a monthly payment. This interest rate is due in 5 years. This thing is due in 5 years. Do you think there is not going to be more money flowing into Bitcoin within a 5-year period? If you don't think so, you need to study Bitcoin. You need to read the book that I said, and you will understand, and you will have a lot of conviction that within 5 years, Bitcoin is going to be higher than what it is today. Now, it's going to be volatile. Yes, it could go down tomorrow. In a few months, it could crash, and that's one of the concerns. If Bitcoin crashes 50%, this debt cannot be called. There's no monthly payment. It cannot be called only after 5 years, okay? So, and also, this is convertible into 18 cents, which translates into about 25 cents Canadian. The stock today is at 28, okay? So the people that are financing this 5 million are already in the money. So when the stock is over 25 cents, it gives them incentive to get this thing finished and financed. But from their point of view, of the people that are financing this, they're going to finance them $5 million that's backed by Bitcoin. They're going to get 10% interest, right? Accruing for 5 years. And then they get to, whenever they want to, they get to convert to 25 cents of LEEF shares, which are already in the money today. So this is a great idea from the operational point of view, but also from the exposure. And now, this is the beginning, because it just started yesterday. The amount of eyes that are going to pay attention to this company is unbelievable. And because of what's about to happen, I think it is fueling a rocket. And here's what I mean. In May 6, 2024, that was before I got involved, LEEF Brands announces successful debt restructuring and settlement of debt. They had some debt that converted, okay? And as a result of this conversion, it was an amount of $4 million, and it created 224 million units. Now, notice that there recently there was a 10-to-1 consolidation. So 224 million shares. Today, it's 22 million shares because of the consolidation. But just bear with me. I'm just going to keep using the 224 million shares. They converted at, about 3 cents, okay? So that was on May 6th. And then those shares became tradable right away. So these shares were given to people that didn't want to own shares of the company, but they had some debt. The company owed them money, and instead of repaying them, they gave them shares. What do you think happened to those shares? They started dumping them right away. And look at the stock price, like literally from May. So now this is 3 cents. So in 2 days, it's 30 cents. So now we have to convert it to 30 cents because of the consolidation. So May, right here, May 2nd, the stock was at 35. The moment they got the shares, look what they did to the stock price. It went from 30 cents to 5 cents. 86% down because they were pounding and pounding and pounding the company, right? So when I got involved, I looked at the number of shares and I said, when those shares are cleaned up and sold, this thing is going to go, okay? So I got involved literally right here at the bottom, okay? And since the bottom, we are already up 460%. But those people are not done selling shares yet, okay? Do you know how many shares traded from the moment that they got them to today? About 224 million shares. But not all of the selling came from them, right? But also, not all of the holders are willing to sell. So it's pretty much a wash. But if about 224 million shares, or 22 million in today's shares, already traded since that press release, you know what this tells me? That they are very close to being done. And today, with the stock being up 40% in one day, gives me a preview of what it's about to happen when they're done selling. Because they're not done yet. Because the moment it hit 35, they immediately came in and started dumping shares. But they have to be very close to being done. I don't know how many more shares they have left. I don't know how many more days or weeks they still have before it's finished. But if I were you, and if I were interested in this company, I would be getting those shares from them as long as they still have them. Because the moment they run out, all the exposure from Bitcoin, if we get some rescheduling, news, any sort of thing, tax selling laws is finished, it could get very interesting. So that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts.